Hello friends, this is Scott, and look what we have here. We have new life on the hobby farm. The neighbor has brought over a cow and calf to graze our approximately an acre and a half pastures between the two properties, and they're going to have all year just to come and eat down this grass. Now I asked him if he wanted to section off the pastures so that we could possibly bale hay for him, and he said no, the hay prices are very, very inexpensive this year. So we left the gate open, and the cows are just going to come and go as they please, and they'll just graze this pasture throughout the summer. And the calf may be dinner. We're going to split a quarter of a cow with the neighbor, and that might be the one that we're going to get, the baby there. So he's growing fast, though. He's probably 300 pounds already. So it's pretty amazing how fast livestock grows. But they'll have a great life in our backyard pastures, and they have all they want to eat and more, probably. But today's project was to plant some summer vegetables. And again, I'm not going to get them all in, but I'm going to start with the tomatoes and the peppers and a little bit of eggplant. And we're going to put those right here. And here's a look at what I brought down. And we have some way overgrown squash plants I'm going to plant elsewhere, as well as some cucumbers. And I did buy some tomatoes today. And I did bring some tomatoes down that we grew from seed, but they didn't fare too well on the drive down. It was pretty windy, and they died, I think. So I think I have 10 cages for tomatoes, and I think I have 7 decent tomato plants, so we'll see. But I did bring down the good stuff. I was able to screen another 40 gallons of the compost from the in-ground trampoline pit that I turned into a compost bin. And again, this is the best stuff you could ever find. You'll never find better stuff. You can't buy it, you got to make it. And here's the tomatoes that we're growing. We have Better Boys and Early Girl. And we scroll around, we've got some Brandywines. And that's one that I grew from seed. I don't remember what it is, so that'll be a mystery one. And we have a Moscow, which is my favorite tomato. They're not the hugest tomatoes, but they're very tasty. Mr. Stripey. And we have a Big Boy. And then we have 3 that died. So I'm going to go ahead and plant them because you never know. If they show any signs of life, I'll give them a chance, but I'll just have to hit the nursery and buy 3 more tomatoes and bring them down one of these next trips. Now this is from my son's roommate, Kane, who's living with us for about a month while he's waiting for his apartment to become available. But he bought a salamander from Mexico, and it's called it's an axolotl or something like that. It's kind of a rare salamander, endangered. But he bought those worms, and they're too big for the size of the salamander right now. So he gave them to me, and he's a kind-hearted soul, and he wanted me to make sure they just don't die. So I brought them down here to plant in the tomato bed. So yeah, there's a look at how nice and fluffy and loose this stuff is. And again, you see a lot of compost on YouTube, and you don't find anything like this. This is the best you'll see. But I don't have a lot of it, and so I'm just going to have to sparingly use it today. And again, it's about 40 gallons I brought down, so I'm just going to give each tomato a scoop, and I'm just going to put it right on where I'm going to dig the hole and mix it all in, and that's what they'll get for their ration. And then I'll be using the rest of the compost elsewhere where I'm planting the other plants I brought down today. But again, just 1 scoop per plant. I wish I had a lot more, but yeah, I have what I have, and I'm just going to use it. But it's pretty rich stuff. It's very worm casting laden, so it should be very nutritious for the tomatoes. So just 1 scoop per plant, and we'll get them planted up and mix all that good stuff in there. And again, there's very little organic life in this soil that I screened from the big pile of dirt in the back. So I've got to be adding more organic matter. So we'll see how this all goes over time. But yeah, it's a first year bed, so we're just going to see how we do. Again, I'm just mixing it all in. And you see Miss Thing's with me. I did not bring Lincoln down this trip, so Miss Thing got a lot of attention, and she's getting a lot more comfortable. And she's even getting more comfortable when Lincoln's around. So she's a sweet cat. Again, that's the cat that I brought back to Salt Lake, took to the vet, and saved its life. So she's my buddy. But we'll get all these planted up. And again, not a hard process, but I am pinching off the bottom leaves of the tomatoes. I want to plant them deep because if the deeper you plant, so you don't want to bury them, but you want to bury as much stalk as you can because that'll cause the plant to root more and create a more healthy and stable plant. So yeah, it's plant tomatoes deep, and you want to get them in the ground. Now down here at the hobby farm, the weather is just finally warm enough. I feel comfortable, but it's still getting in the high 30s and low 40s at night. So it's a crapshoot. You just never know when a late frost could wipe us out and I have to restart. But I'm hoping, and we're in June now, and this will all work out. But you never know. But again, that's why the nurseries have plants, beyond June, because there's the weather does take its toll, and I'm sure I can always find tomatoes if I need to replant some. But simple process, just get down on my hands and knees and just do a little digging and just do a little planting. It's not a hard process. Tomatoes are one of the easiest plants to grow in the garden, and so I think they're pretty much foolhardy as long as you provide them adequate soil, even moisture, you mulch them nice, and you should have a pretty good crop. But we'll see. I had a deer run through the back driveway there, and I didn't get a chance to film it. It was too quick, but I don't think deer will eat tomatoes, but they're here, and they're living in the yard next door, I believe, mostly. So they're cutting through the yard, and I'm hoping they don't find any of my vegetables. They haven't found my peas yet, but I think it's because I planted them next to the onions and the garlic, and I think that smell's probably not appealing to the deer, so they're probably not even going up there to investigate. But if they find those peas, they're not going to last long. They'll be gone in a day. So we'll see what happens with those, but they're starting to flower, and that'll be a future video. But we should have peas in the next few weeks, and again, barring any deer activity. But I got to keep everything moist, and I got to get down here. And the temperature is going to be changing. It's going to raise to probably 85s to 90 in the next week or so. So it's critical that I get all this stuff watered adequately and mulched in. Now here's a look at the night crawlers that Kane gave me to save their lives, and I wanted to show proof that I did use them. I didn't just smile at him and take them and say thank you. They are down at the hobby farm, and now Kane's worms are part of the tomato bed, and they'll always be here, or their ancestors should be. But there's some pretty good earthworms, and again, I'm lacking a lot of worms in this soil. I think there's tons of worms around. They're just not. They're down deep in the soil because there's very little organic life because this yard has been abused and neglected for so many years that they'll start to come back up the surface and become more prevalent. I am seeing more worms every time I dig now. So, but this will be Kane's worm bed. So there they go. Now I got a little bit of compost, and I've got a little bit in the bucket still, the 40-gallon bucket. But I've got some here to plant the peppers. And here's a look. And there are the eggplant that are plants that we planted from seed, from the school garden seed. But the peppers are all store-bought here. Now, all the ahi amarillo peppers I planted in the earth boxes, and I didn't do a video this year on that because I've done 2 years in a row of that process, growing those. So all my ahi amarillos, which are Peruvian pepper, are all at my Salt Lake residence in the earth boxes in the backyard. So that's where they're going to be growing this year. So let's take a look at what we're growing today. We have some cayennes, a couple cayennes, and we have some jalapenos, a few of those. And then we have, it's hard to read the ticket as I'm scanning by, but they're called Keystone Giants. They're just a big green pepper. We're not a huge pepper family, but it's nice to always have some peppers. And, you don't have to plant a ton of them. And there's the eggplant. But you just plant a few and you get quite a bit. And we do like a little bit of spice for our salsas and other things. But we don't need a ton. And I still have some dried peppers from last year that I dehydrated and saved. So I don't need to have a huge amount of peppers planted. But again, peppers are just like tomatoes, very simple. Just loosen the roots up. I don't tend to bury the stem, but you can bury a little bit. They'll tolerate that, and they will help them root a little bit. But do a little speed planting. Again, I don't have a ton of stuff on the end of this bed, but I figured this is where I'll put them, and I hope the deer don't find them. But again, I don't know if they'll like peppers or not, but we'll see what we get this year. And then if I have to figure out a way to secure certain types of plants that the deer eat more than others, I'll have to figure that out and do that. But still have more beds I want to prepare, but that'll be for another trip down. But as always, got to water everything in really good, and this bed is really, really dry, and it doesn't have hardly any organic matter in it. So I do have some grass clippings in there also, but I wanted to wet it really good, and I'll be adding more and more organic matter. But here's the middle bed on the side yard, and I've got some squash, and these are pretty sad-looking squash, but I know I have a spaghetti squash, the littlest one, up, and then I have some other squash that I didn't even bother to label, so we'll have a surprise, see if they grow. But again, if they don't, I'll replant them with something else. But these are ones that we grew from seed, and and they hung out under the grow lights way too long. And we planted our seedlings, or our seeds, way early this year, and didn't realize we were way too early for down here at the hobby farm, because this summer stuff you cannot plant it with any fear of frost, because or cold weather, because if you get any cold snaps, you just killed everything that you planted. So, but again, planting squash is just like everything else. And again, I used the cardboard, I used the soil, screen soil for the big pile of dirt, and then I did bring compost from the nursery here. And then I have my homemade compost. So I've got a little bit of everything. So hopefully these plants will take off and there'll be enough fertility and they'll do well. But here's that tiny, tiny little spaghetti squash, so we'll see. Now you can plant squash from seed and just plant them direct seed in the ground, and they do well in Utah. I'm not sure at this elevation at the hobby farm, but I decided we'd just go ahead and give it a try down here, and with the plants. And if it dies, I'll either buy some or plant some more seed. That's the last of the good stuff I have, my worm casting laden compost, and I'm planting summer squash on the end of this bed. Now, this is the bed where I planted the russet potatoes that froze, so I'm going to replant some other plants I'll show you here in a minute in that bed. If they come up, great. If they don't, then I'll have something else growing there. But again, that bed was a little low, ended up being, and I think it overwatered and then it froze. And so, yeah, the potatoes are going to be a little hard this year for the russets, but as you see behind me, the red and the white potatoes are doing great. So I think we're going to have a good potato harvest anyway. But I did plant just one zucchini, because you can have way too much zucchini really quick. And I have a crookneck, which is my favorite squash for the summer squashes. So crookneck, if I was to just plant one, it would be the crookneck. Now here's a look at some overgrown cucumbers that we planted from seed, or started from seed, under the grow lights. And yeah, lots of growth. So hopefully they're not overgrown to the point of surviving. So we'll see how this goes. But just planting them and then spreading out the leaves a little bit to hopefully they'll get solar energy, and hopefully they'll live. So 2 of them look really good, and then there's 2 that look kind of sad, but it is what it is. So here's a look after I'd watered in the squash on the side yard. And again, I need to mow. It looks the grass is getting long, but here's the peppers and the tomatoes. And everything's looking pretty good the next day. Everything lived overnight, so other than the 3 that I knew was going to die. But it's nice to have new life at the hobby farm, and I'm looking forward to more summer planting and enjoying watching these cows grow. Well, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button, like, share, and comment, as I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.